and water surrounding Naglalaquam, Bowen Island for millenniums. And on that nice note, we'll go right into number one, the approval of the agenda. Late items, Steph, anything?
Nope.
Okay. And does anybody have anything that they would like to add to the agenda or omit for that matter? No, I don't see anything. We will approve the agenda by consensus. Move on to public comments. Steph, do you have anybody out there?
Look, no public, but it'd be good if we could adopt the minutes.
Yep. As long as there's no public comments, we'll move on to the next part. Just one here.
Oh, we're supposed to adopt
yeah,
minutes
sorry,
before public comment.
Yeah. So the minutes from May 10th, 2022 of the Community Center Select Steering Committee meeting. Does anybody see any errors or omissions that they would like to correct in there? If not, we'll adopt the minutes by consensus. Now we'll move on to public comments. Steph, thank you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No one from the
Too
public.
much paperwork going on here.
No public.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move right into updates. And 4.1 is fundraising update. Jacqueline Massey, fundraising coordinator. Jackie, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. And hello, everyone. So over the past month or so since we've left, or since we last met, in terms of our fundraising efforts, we are continuing to engage with donors, pledgers, and the general public about the project, including calling in outstanding pledges. On that front, we've received about 85% of all the pledges to date, which largely represents gifts at the silver and bronze levels. We are in communication with pledgers of larger gifts regarding updates about the project and timing in terms of honoring those pledges. We've received an update from the Bowen Island Community Foundation regarding pledges and/or funds that they are holding on behalf of the project. This includes approximately $1 million in capital and $1 million in a legacy gift, plus $225,000 in the endowment fund. Communications efforts continue with the development of an ongoing strategy, which includes the newsletter that you should have all received in your inbox earlier today, thanks to Sophie. So included in that is information about the seat sponsorship campaign. We've moved the sample seats down to the hearth and provided some promotional materials around that. And we also have plans for them to show up at the Canada event down at the community school. If you haven't already, you'll also read about the wonderful evening of story and song the Hearth hosted last week, featuring Lawrence Hill and Barney Bentall, two luminaries. We're really thankful to everyone involved and for the donation of proceeds from that event, which were earmarked for the community center project. Other fundraising campaigns that we've been developing include a paving tile sponsorship campaign, and also, as you know, the development of the naming opportunities campaign. In terms of grant funding, we submitted a project summary as requested to the Senior Program Advisor of the Cultural Spaces Grant. That was at the end of May. And it included a brief overview and update of the project, including a breakdown of costs for infrastructure, construction, and specialized equipment for the arts and cultural spaces. We include a proposed programming schedule with a focus on professional arts and a construction timeline and cash flow forecast. We have since heard back from Ileana Lang, the senior manager, or sorry, she's a senior program advisor. And so she's informed us that a new manager of the Cultural Space program has been appointed. And Jillian, Liam, and I will be meeting with him and Ileana early next week to discuss our project. And I think that's about all I have in terms of a summary for fundraising, at this point.
All right. Thanks, Jackie. Any questions? Jackie, was that Ileana? Was that the person we were talking to before that was very encouraging about that?
We have been in touch with Liliana for a number of months, but initially we were speaking to Deborah Myers, who was the
Yes.
manager for Western Division of the Cultural Spaces Grant. She's no longer with the organization. I think there was a period of a few months before they appointed somebody new, and they've just come in.
All right. Okay. Well, we got to get to know her very well.
Him, but yes.
Oh, to him.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. What was the name again?
I didn't mention the name. His name
Oh
is
no, I was thinking of Liliana.
Ileana Lang. She's,
Ileana.
she's our senior program advisor that we've been
Okay,
one-on-one. Yeah.
super
And
duper.
who's the new manager?
The new manager's name is Jeremy Arbuthnot. Arbuthnot, I think his last name is pronounced.
All right.
I just had one clarification question, Gary.
Go ahead, Allison. Yeah.
Jackie, when you said 85% of the gifts, you're meaning 85% of the number of gifts,
That's correct.
not the dollars. Right.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't much of an uptake from the last time we met, was it?
No, it's so we're we're outstanding on those silver and gold. It amounts to approximately just under $10,000 that are outstanding.
All right. All right. Thanks, Jackie. Allison, is that it? Your hand's still up?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks very much, Jackie. And we'll move on to construction update with Liam Edwards, Chief Administration Officer. Liam.
Hey, thanks, Mayor and committee members. I'll give you a brief update of where we're at on the project. And so you probably noticed as you drive by that there's a fair bit of forming activity. And so the majority of the earthworks are complete. There's still some finishing touches to be done and some minor trenching here and there, as well as prepping the road base. We won't be prepping the road base for paving anytime soon because there's still going to be a lot of heavy machinery and trucking on the site, but just building the road base to a better standard. But the footings have all been poured and they're now into framing up the forms for the structural walls. And what you see closest to the road are the walls that will support the large multi-purpose room and performing arts center. And that actually makes up our primary storage area underneath the large multi-purpose room, as well as the mechanical room and electrical room. And so we should be looking to start pouring those in the coming weeks. And then just an interesting note, we're quite lucky to have Bowen Island Concrete on this project. We're quite lucky to have Bowen Island Concrete on Bowen. And we're quite lucky to have them on this project because I'm not sure if you've heard or not, but there's a significant concrete challenge occurring in the Lower Mainland where there's a strike happening amongst the concrete workers. And so most projects in the Lower Mainland that are requiring concrete pours have come to a grinding halt. And some large projects are actually laying off their construction crews because they can't pour concrete. And so the project's completely delayed. Bowen Island Concrete is making hay while the sun shines, and they're spending a lot of their time on the mainland and doing big projects that really need to continue to move forward. But they have assured us that they are prioritizing Bowen, because there are a few other big projects on Bowen beside ours as well, including the health center is ready to pour their floor and things like that. So that's a positive thing for us. So it's not going to impact our schedule, which is great. However, the schedule is a little, and I'll get into that in the next item. So maybe I'll just save that for a moment. But generally the project is progressing quite well. And I had an item on the agenda here about the Douglas fir tree. This is actually in reference to the Douglas fir tree that was on the fire hall site, and that had to be taken down to accommodate that project. And so I've been working with a couple of community members about options for how we can honor the tree and make best use of the lumber, the wood available from that tree. And you've probably heard me talk about two ideas that were generated. One was the creation of a protective shed covering for a heritage fire truck, which will be housed at the fire hall. That project is clearly underway, and it's a pretty neat project because all of the materials and time and energy have been donated by various trades. So the concrete was generously donated by Bowen Island Concrete. We got roofing generously donated by a roofing company. And the timbers were milled from the logs from the site by the West Van high school kids with our building inspector who coordinated that work. And the timbers showed up on site this week, and so they're going to start erecting that. The other project that we had in mind for honoring the tree was taking what we call a cookie slice of the tree and then showcasing that at the same location. However, we're challenged to find somebody with a saw blade large enough to actually get a good slice of the tree, and the amount of work and effort to do it right, to preserve the bark. For example, when they started milling the other logs from the tree, the bark just sloughed off immediately. And so to try to retain the bark would be quite difficult. So I'm told it'd be quite a difficult task to proceed with that idea. And so we're exploring an alternative idea of still trying to mill that remaining log, which is also really difficult because of the sheer size of it. It's hard to find a mill that can handle that. But then to use the lumber from that log for some showcase benches, both at the community center, and we're also considering the donation of some of the lumber to the health center, so we could have some nice representation of the tree at various sites. And I just wanted to pass that idea past the committee here. So the idea being we could perhaps engage the public art committee to maybe solicit, it could be maybe it's a competition, or just solicit interest from some local woodworkers to see who might be interested in working with this lumber to create some nice benches for the community center.
Yeah, I think you could, Liam, I think you could actually cut that. You'd have to split that log up into 4 or something like that, but that's fine too. You'd lose a little bit, but that's certainly then any of the mills on the island could handle it. I think that's a great idea. They would have, the stuff would have to be, well, not dried out too much if they're going to be outside. You know, you could still make benches of them. They wouldn't have to be very dry. It's a great idea. Anybody else?
No, good.
Okay.
Even benches inside, it might be nice because the fir is not as sturdy outside as cedar is.
It's pretty, because it is, it's fairly tight grain. It's pretty,
Yeah.
Fir will do quite well. I mean, it won't last forever, but it will do, especially if it's a nice thick slab.
And it's got some sunshine on it.
Yeah.
Maybe sort of undercover.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Liam. And then we're going to go. Was that all for 4.2?
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll move on to 4.3, which is the monthly reporting. Back to you, Liam.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see what we're working on. can everybody see my screen now?
Nope.
Hasn't come up quite yet. It's working on it.
Okay.
There
you
we go.
Right.
Okay, great. So we asked our project management consultants to help us develop a simplified monthly summary. And the idea is that this would be generated at the end of every month. And then we can push that out to the committee, regardless of whether we're meeting or not, to keep you apprised of what's happening. And then that would also become the primary vehicle to inform all of our communications. So the newsletter that Sophie does, updating our website, and as well as providing the key information for our provincial monthly and periodic reporting requirements for the grant funding that we have. So the report that I'm sharing with you right now isn't the final product. It's close, but there's some tweaks and amendments that we are working through right now. But I wanted to just share it with you so you get a sense of what it is, and also an opportunity for you to provide feedback if there was something that you felt we really should be including or not including or what have you. We probably won't provide pictures in this report, but the pictures would be part of all of the newsletters and the other communications. And so you won't see any pictures here, but essentially the report starts off with the standard information about the project, and then it has the overall status of the project. Is it on target? Is it a caution? Is it at risk? And this is something that you would have been familiar with from other reporting on the project. But what we need to add in here that's currently missing is why is it at whatever state it's at. And so the consultant will go back and actually add in that information as to, is it at risk or caution because of scope, schedule, or budget. And so we'll be adding that in.
So is that going to get added in across the bottom, like one of those cross bars, rather than trying to bury it in that little bit at the top?
Yeah, well, I haven't actually. We just met and talked about that this week, and so I haven't seen what they are coming up with, but exactly want to have it really crystal clear as to what is triggering the overall status. And my preference too is also to have, because we had it in the previous reporting where you had the previous status and then you have the current status, so you can get a bit of a trend and see, okay, well, what is the trend of the status of the project?
Yeah, good idea.
The scope section really is quite simple. It starts off with what has been accomplished in this period. So the reporting period for this one was from April to May. And so we'll be doing monthly ones. So then the next one would be June and then July and likewise. And so accomplished in this period, the septic design and modifications to suit excavation and land clearing requirements was completed. Building permit was issued, forming was in progress, and blasting was nearly complete. Tasks that were planned but not accomplished was one of the key things was the value engineering process is still ongoing, and we're trying to wrap that up as soon as we possibly can. And the objective with that value engineering process is to achieve some cost savings. I just noticed Jamie's hand is up, and so I'll pause there.
Okay. Go ahead then, James.
Thank you. Thanks, Liam. Just a couple questions. One of them is this a public document? In other words, can I share this with the Hearth Board of Directors at our monthly meeting?
That would be the intent, that this document will be able to share openly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you said that this is a summary, a monthly summary. Will there also be the plan for the next month as part of this report? Like what's coming up?
As like a look ahead,
Yeah.
it would, I'm scrolling down here, and I'm going to try to make it a bit bigger so you can see it. It does have a little bit of a look ahead in the overall schedule. And so I'll talk about that in a moment, but yeah, not a detailed look ahead, but just the sort of a high level, what's coming up next. We, the project
Right there,
team,
objectives for next period.
oh, right, there you go. But that it is still, it's at a bit of a high level. Like, so we always have a 3-week look ahead at a detailed project team level. And so we're constantly looking ahead every 3 weeks. And so thanks, Allison. The objectives for the next period would just simply describe what the key items are coming up. And then it also provides a status of the next period. Currently, the consultant is saying that we're 3 weeks behind schedule. They assure us that they'll be able to make that up, and that shouldn't be impacting the completion date at this point in time.
The reason they're 3 weeks behind?
I think I don't actually have a full reason for it, but a large reason for it is the additional earthworks required for the septic. And so that, because that wasn't built into the original plan, so that threw a bit of a wrench into the system. And then some additional delays around, there was more overburden, so soil, like unconsolidated soils on top of the rock, which was excavated. And it took longer to figure out what we were going to do with that and where we were going to store that. Jillian, go ahead.
And just adding to that, in association with that, is that not only with the earthworks and the civil, but there was coordination with the stormwater management that needed to take place as well. The volume of water coming off of the fields was larger than anticipated, so had to work that out. And also, for example, the coordination of the pipes, the sump pump, and all the utilities out the front of the south end of the building, in association with now having to pump the wastewater for the septic from the front. So there was all sorts of different coordination pieces that had to take place as well.
So 3 weeks isn't bad with all of that.
Yeah,
that's right.
David?
Yeah,
David?
Yeah, thank you, Barry. Thank you, Lynn. So is the caution, I'm wondering about the caution, is the 3 weeks simply the explanation for the caution, or is there something more that needs a little bit of worrying about?
well, it's the caution is mostly about the 3 weeks because it's early in the project, and also just we're still nailing down this value engineering piece here.
Okay.
And so without the value engineering piece nailed down, there's still exposed to a bit of risk around what the final prices will be on some of those items. We did negotiate into the contract, though, what's called a cash allowance to address any cost difference on items that we weren't able to nail down right away with the value engineering, and so we should be covered with that. But that puts us in that caution.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, can I just add, one of the things that we discussed with WSP in preparing this report that we wanted to see if it would be valuable to you is in that status, if we actually broke it down and provided the status, overall status for budget, scope, and schedule individually, if that would be useful as opposed to just having it all together as an option. Because then you'd see a little more clearly where the concern may be.
Where's
I think that would show up here, because we're going to break.
Yeah.
We're going to break this down into scope, schedule, budget,
But we
so
just
for
haven't
each-
set that piece, that's all.
Right.
That we break it down.
Right. And so each item, scope, schedule, budget, will be identified whether it's green, yellow, or red, on target, caution, or at risk. And then, so if we've got, you know, anything that's in the yellow, then we go to yellow. Like if we have, you know, anything at red, we go to red. That type of thing. And then we'll know, and you'll clearly see, oh, it's because of the schedule that we are in the yellow.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And then this needs to be cleaned up. The font is tiny and really hard to read, so I'll make it better. And just the presentation of it can be improved. And so, well, that's maybe too big. Basically, it's the entire project schedule with the key elements of the project. We're going to change the coloring so that it's actually all the same color, but a gradient of color, moving to a darker color as we move towards completion.
So just remember that when you put dark stuff in as a background with black lettering on it, it's really hard to read.
Yeah, you got to change
I have
it to.
no problem with these
Yeah.
colors right now because the
Yeah.
black letters show up.
Yeah, we will change it to the white if we do that. So what we didn't want is people to think that this coloring was linked at all into the cautionary colors. And so we want to decouple that. And these shapes should be the same as the other shapes. What's missing from this is where we are right here, right now, today. And so these are the key elements: land clearing, excavation, blasting, forming, foundation, building envelope, interior, landscaping, commissioning, occupancy.
So these
Right.
dates were the dates when the job was supposed to be finished by.
That's correct. These are dates that were our current schedule as it's forecast. And currently we are landing right here in between forming and foundation. So we're currently tracking fairly well to the
Yeah.
project schedule. And so what we just want to make this stand out a little more clearly where we currently are today.
Yeah, good idea.
And then we have here I'll make this a little smaller so we can see it more easily. A cost breakdown. And so we start with the consultant costs, construction costs, general costs, and contingencies. And for general costs, you know, we want to just make sure that everybody's clear on that. And so that's anything that's not captured within the contract in the CCDC2 contract with Golden Globe.
Yeah.
And
Soft costs.
some of the soft costs and some of the FF&E and some of the things that are not there. So this is our budget column and our committed column, and we noted that contingency needs to be carried through here because there, you know, as we go to commit contingency, we need to identify that. And so,
Have
and
we
then there's
committed any of the contingency yet?
small amounts, and we've got some discussions coming up about some other potential contingency asks. Yeah. Spent to date column, and then remaining to be spent. And so this is inclusive, the budget and the spent is inclusive of all costs incurred on the project to date. So that's going beyond the construction start. So it's not just from March, it goes all the way back.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So you might need a little note in there maybe, because that's the updated budget, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
which is inclusive of the previous soft costs that we had incurred to date.
Yeah.
This graph is not what will be in the final report. So I want to show you what we are leaning towards as a graph, and welcome your feedback on that. So we want to show what the cash flow is against the actual. And so the bar graph is measured against the left-hand axis. And so it is the monthly billing forecast in blue. So this is what we forecasted. Well, Golden Globe is forecasting that they will spend this much each month in blue. And then the dotted red line is the cumulative forecast of the cash flow. So over time, and that's measured against the right-hand axis. And so each month it's just compounding, adding on top of itself. So this is only including the construction right now. So we would want to build this with the financial data for the entire project, not just the Golden Globe data. But essentially, so this shows that at the end of the project, we will have spent $14.4 million. But on each month, you can see we're usually in and around the $500,000 to $1 million each month. What we have to pay really close attention to is these 2 months in 2023, April and May, where there's
before we get our tax dollars.
Before we get our tax bill, and where they're forecasting $2 million expenditures back to back. And so I don't believe that will occur. I think that was just initial forecasting, and as the project solidifies, we'll see those 2 columns shift. But there'll still be some big payments coming out around that time. I do think it would be tough to spend $4 million in 2 months on the project, but it's in buried in these big expenditures is all the drywall work and some other large acquisitions, which the drywall work will all occur in around that time period, but the large acquisitions could occur sooner or later. And so this forecast will change. This will constantly change. And so, but what I really want, we need this from a financial management perspective to ensure the municipality has enough cash on hand to pay, but we also want to be able to track the performance of the project. And so right now we're only here at May 2022, and but this is fictitious. The data that's in here that's showing the actual, which is in gray, and this is me being just entering some fictitious data to show how we can track changes in forecast versus actual. And so the solid red line will be the cumulative actual spend, and that will be helpful for us to be able to identify how the project performed. It will also be helpful to the municipality for other projects that we're doing to be able to do other projections and forecasting in a better way.
And if you actually change the total budget to the 18.7, then the February 2022 number is going to be your red line is going to be starting up above $1 million.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's starting at like 1.2 or something like that. Yeah. So does this?
Sorry, David, you got his hand up there. Sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for this. The one thing, looking at obviously you put a bunch of fictitious numbers in here. At first I looked at it, I thought, oh, I'm not liking this. And then I saw the date and realized, okay, this isn't reality. But what the solid red line versus the dotted line, I mean, that's what we want, what you would want to worry about if you see a trend like you've drawn here. But looking at this, what I don't know is how this compares to the work that was supposed to be done. I mean, are we spending more because we're a little ahead in we paid for a bunch of stuff ahead of time or whatever? It doesn't tell me that. It doesn't tell me, unless I'm missing something, it doesn't tell me whether whether that red line going above the dotted line is something to worry about or not?
That's a really good point, Councillor Hawking, and that's something that we most certainly want to be tracking, and we should be illustrating that too. So is that just because we're making known expenditures sooner?
Yeah, could be.
And
Right.
that could be fine. The other thing that we want to be tracking really well and sharing with you is our contingency burn, which was on that other table that we showed.
Yeah.
But, again, when we're talking about the contingency burn, is that reasonable contingency burn, or is that like surprising, unexpected contingency burn? Because I don't doubt that we'll use the contingency. It's just that there's things that we would expect to use it on, and things that we wouldn't expect to use it on. So that's a really good point, and I'm going to jot that down to make sure that we capture that on this graph or some other way.
Great. Thanks, Liam. Yeah.
All right, thanks, David. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, so where's the cash flow in from the grant factored into? It's not on this.
That's not shown here. That's and there's always a lag. So this is really just about the project cash management, and so that's something that Kristen is tracking and working on separately and managing.
So we got some money from them up front, right?
Yeah, we did. We got about 2 million, I believe it was.
And then we had 1.2 in reserves, and then what's coming in donations. So we haven't had to draw down on the borrowing yet.
Not yet, but we want to make that accessible pretty soon. And we do also need to consider revenue anticipation borrowing for next year. So we need to line this up against other capital initiatives for next year. And, but we also should have also room in our unappropriated surplus as well for managing.
Well, don't get me going on that.
Yeah.
No, please.
Okay.
So in the cash flow, that little number at the bottom, I mean, for July 20, where's the holdback? The standard 10% construction holdback in that?
Well, every claim. So we do.
You're withholding on each payment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this doesn't show that holdback. But yeah, it's on every payment we're holding that.
So
back.
this is their bills more than their actual, the cash flow out. So you need to factor that holdback in, because it starts to get to be a big number when you get near those bigger numbers.
Yes, yeah. So you can see here it says monthly billing forecast and monthly billing actual, and then so there's a whole bunch of cash management that's happening in the background too.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Is that it, Liam? Or
yeah, I think I saw Steph was trying to.
Our esteemed volunteer Rob is going to have to leave us.
Oh, too bad.
Just want to change.
Well, thank you, Rob.
No, thank you for the presentation. I think the reports look really, really helpful. I appreciate the questions that were raised and Liam's response. So glad I could join you, but sorry I have to leave at this point.
No problem.
Bye,
Glad you
Rob.
could accept it anyway.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. We'll see you later. Yeah, that's great, Liam. I'm actually I'm feeling quite positive about it, because the guesswork is always in the foundation work and the earthwork. That's usually where the things go sort of sideways.
Yeah.
And we had, there's this new septic field and all the rest of the stuff that went on, and all that clearing at the far end. If we can keep a pretty good handle on that, the earthworks part of it, and move on to something that's a lot closer to define and cost out, then I think, we'll be in. That's a good start.
Well, we are actually, and it's a really good point, Mayor, because that is an area of concern for us too, because what we don't have clarity on yet is what the final numbers are turning out to be. Because the septic field wasn't included in the tender documents, that was an unknown, and the quality of the soil for the parking area to the north and the road to access it was lower quality than preferred. So there was additional excavation and additional rock required in those areas. And so we're actually still in discussions with the trades. So and primarily with the geotech and the civil engineering consultants, as well as Golden Globe, because we are seeing the potential of a change order for that earthwork that's really significant, and that's concerning for us. It's not a finalized change order that's been approved, and because the numbers are quite concerning, and so we're trying to get absolute clarity and certainty on how they've come up with those numbers before we approve that.
All right. Any more questions on this part of it? Okay, we're going to move on to new business. Now, you've got other business in here, which is kind of a catch-all. If anything, anybody has anything they want to put forward at this point in time, any questions? I guess not. And
Make up your mind. I'm just disappearing for a minute. I won't take long. I haven't had lunch yet.
all right. So if there's no other comments there, we'll move on to the closed meeting. And the recommendation is the Community Center Select Steering Committee move to a closed meeting pursuant to sections 90-1 sections K of the Community Charter. And I will move that, and second to David. All in favor?